How did ancient humans survive winter without central heating, without insulated jackets, without even knowing what a thermostat was? The answer involves wearing entire dead animals, sleeping in piles like puppies, and burning so much fat that archaeologists can still smell it thousands of years later. Picture this. You are Grug. You lived 40,000 years ago. Winter is coming and you do not have a house. You do not have a furnace. You do not have wool socks or a space heater or even the concept of hot chocolate. What you do have is ice. Lots of ice. Ice that does not melt for 6 months. Ice that covers half the planet. Ice that kills you if you mess up even once. So what did Grug do? Did he just die? Well, sometimes yes. But the ones who survived had strategies that were absolutely wild. First, the clothes. Grug did not pop down to the mall for a parka. Grug killed an animal and then wore that animal. The entire animal. We are talking full body suits made from reindeer, from mammoth, from bear. Archaeologists have found needles made from bone that are 20,000 years old. Tiny, precise needles with perfect little eyes thread through them. Which means Grug was sewing. Grug was tailoring custom fur outfits like some kind of Stone Age fashion designer. And here is the crazy part. They were not just draping hides over themselves. They were making fitted clothing, pants, jackets, boots, gloves. We know this because researchers found a guy frozen in the Alps from 5,000 years ago and he was wearing 5 separate layers. 5 layers. Grug understood layering better than most people today. The boots are what really get me. They would take animal hide and stuff it with grass for insulation. Grass. Like organic wool socks that you replace every day. Then they would wrap more hide around the outside and tie it with sinew. Waterproof, insulated, custom-fit boots. No shoe store required. Just one dead deer and an afternoon. But wearing dead animals only gets you so far when it is negative 40 degrees outside and the wind is trying to murder you. So Grug needed shelter. And this is where it gets even better. Caves were the obvious choice. But not just any cave, and definitely not alone. Grug needed a big cave. A cave that could fit 30, 40, sometimes 50 people all at once. Because the survival strategy was literally to pile up like a litter of kittens and share body heat. Personal space was not invented yet. Personal space would get you killed. Archaeologists have found cave sites where you can see the layout. Fires in the middle, sleeping areas around the edges. 30 people minimum, all winter long. No privacy, no alone time, no such thing as introvert or extrovert, just survive or die. And if you are thinking that sounds cozy, remember that nobody had deodorant, nobody had toothbrushes, nobody had bathed since October. You are living in a confined space with 40 unwashed humans for 6 consecutive months. The smell alone could probably kill a modern person. But here is where it gets really interesting. Fire was not enough. A regular wood fire in a cave that big would need constant feeding and it still would not heat the whole space. So Grug got creative. Grug invented the fat lamp. A fat lamp is exactly what it sounds like. You take a shallow bowl made of stone. You fill it with animal fat. You add a wick made from moss or lichen. You light it on fire. And then you keep it burning. All day. All night, all winter. Some caves have evidence of dozens of these lamps burning at the same time. Just pools of flaming fat everywhere creating heat and light for months on end. The fuel efficiency was actually incredible. One seal could provide enough blubber to keep a lamp burning for weeks. A mammoth could power your entire cave through the winter. So Grug was not just hunting for food. Grug was hunting for heating oil, and it gets better. They figured out that different fats burned differently. Reindeer fat burned clean. Fish oil was smoky but lasted forever. Bear fat was premium fuel. Grug became a fat connoisseur. Grug had opinions about fat quality like people today have opinions about coffee beans. The side effect was that everything smelled like burning meat all the time. Your clothes smelled like it. Your hair smelled like it. The walls of the cave were coated in a layer of greasy soot. Archaeologists can still scrape it off and analyze what animals they were burning. 40,000 years later and the residue is still there. Now you might be thinking, okay, Grug has clothes and fire and a cave full of people. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Because winter lasted 6 months and food does not grow in winter, so Grug needed to store food, and refrigerators had not been invented yet. Fortunately, Grug lived in a giant natural freezer. The whole world was a freezer. So the strategy was to hunt like crazy in the fall, kill as much as possible and then just leave it outside. Frozen meat storage. The whole landscape was a walk-in freezer that never broke down. They would dig pits in the permafrost and stack them full of carcasses. Seal, reindeer, mammoth, whatever they could get. Then cover it with rocks to keep scavengers out. When they needed food, they would go chip off a frozen chunk and bring it inside to thaw. Meal prep Stone Age edition. But here is the thing. You cannot just eat meat for 6 months. You need other nutrients or you get scurvy and your teeth fall out. So Grug had to get creative with the menu. They ate organ meats because organs have vitamin C, liver, kidneys, eyeballs. The parts that most modern people throw away were the parts that kept Grug alive. They also ate bone marrow. They would crack open every single bone to get at the fatty marrow inside. Archaeologists find piles of smashed bones at winter campsites. Every single one cracked open. Nothing wasted. Grug did not have the luxury of being picky. Some groups figured out that they could store berries and roots from the summer. They would dry them or freeze them. Little caches of plants buried in the permafrost like a Stone Age pantry. When they found a frozen burial site in Siberia, the people had been buried with pouches of dried berries, snacks for the afterlife. And if Grug ran out of food, if the hunting was bad and the stores ran empty, then Grug had a very bad time. Starvation was a real possibility. We have found winter camp sites that were just abandoned. Everyone left, probably because they were out of food and had to risk traveling in the winter to find more. Some of them did not make it. We find their bodies sometimes, frozen in the ice, still wearing their 5 layers. But let us talk about the groups that lived even further north. The ones that made the Ice Age look like spring break. The people who lived in the Arctic, where winter was not 6 months. Winter was 8 months or 10 months, where the sun did not even rise for weeks at a time. These absolute mad lads did not have caves. There were no caves, so they built houses out of bones, mammoth bones. They would take the ribs and tusks and skulls of dead mammoths and construct these domed frameworks. Then they would cover the whole thing with hides and pile snow on top for insulation. A house made from the skeleton of the largest land animal on Earth. Just casual Stone Age engineering. One of these mammoth bone houses could take 100 bones to build, which means you needed to find about 15 dead mammoths. These things were not thrown together in an afternoon. This was a major construction project, a winter home that might last for years. Inside, they would dig down below ground level for extra insulation. The entrance was a long tunnel that trapped cold air. The whole design was shockingly sophisticated. Modern archaeologists have tested the thermal efficiency, and these bone houses could maintain a livable temperature with just a couple of small fires and body heat from a family. Grug understood thermodynamics without knowing the word thermodynamics. But even with all this technology, with the clothes and the fire and the shelters, winter still killed people. A lot of people. If you got sick, you probably died. There were no antibiotics, no cough syrup, no immune system boost from vitamin D supplements. You just had to tough it out in a smoky cave and hope your body won the fight. Break your leg in winter. Congratulations, you are now dead weight. Literally. The group cannot move fast with an injured person. They cannot hunt efficiently. If food gets scarce, decisions have to be made. Some skeletons show evidence of healed fractures, which means some people did get cared for and survived. But a lot of skeletons just stop showing up after signs of injury. Do the math. Frostbite was another fun one. Lose feeling in your toes. Those toes are gone. We have found remains with missing fingers and toes, just the bones ending in stumps where the frozen flesh fell off, and they survived. They kept living for years after with fewer digits, because Grug was tough in ways that would make modern people weep. Childbirth in winter was its own nightmare. No hospitals, no pain relief, no sterile anything. Just hopefully some experienced women in your cave who have done this before and can help. Infant mortality was sky high. We find a lot of tiny skeletons at winter sites, a lot. But here is the thing that gets me. They did not just survive, they thrived. These winter camps have evidence of art, cave paintings, carved figurines, jewelry made from shells and teeth, music. They made flutes from bird bones. Grug was sitting in his smoky, smelly, overcrowded cave wearing an entire reindeer, eating frozen eyeballs by lamplight and carving little statues for fun. They told stories. They sang songs. They played games. Archaeologists have found game pieces and dice at winter sites. Grug invented entertainment to pass the time during the 6-month slumber party, and kids were being raised in this environment. Children who had never known anything different. To them, this was just normal life. Yeah, we all sleep in a pile. Yeah, we burn fat for light. Yeah, we eat frozen bone marrow. What is weird about that? These kids were learning survival skills from the moment they could walk. By age 5, they could probably skin a rabbit. By age 10, they could sew their own clothes. By 15, they were full contributors to the winter survival effort. There was no childhood in the modern sense. There was just smaller humans learning to be larger humans who did not die. So next time you complain about your heating bill, or your winter coat not being fashionable enough, or having to scrape ice off your windshield, just remember Grug. Grug wore an entire animal. Grug slept in a pile of strangers. Grug burned mammoth fat in a stone bowl for 6 months straight and called it a good winter if more than half his kids survived. You have a thermostat. You have a grocery store. You have walls that are not made of mammoth bones. You are living in luxury that would make Grug weep with joy. And there is so much more to discover about how our ancestors survived in conditions that would absolutely destroy us today. So stick around, because Grug has more stories to tell.